Hello, I'm Alfred Edmund Jr., Senior Vice President and Executive Editor-at-Large at Black Enterprise with another edition, a really important edition of Beyond the Hype. Today, we're talking about the state of Black men in corporate America in general, but also particularly in corporate America in the post-George Floyd era of corporate commitments to diversity, equity, and inclusion. And we're building on the conversation that was held last year at our Black Men Excel Summit that was virtual in 2020 because of the pandemic, that we called neither privileged nor protected, that Black men were neither privileged nor protected in corporate America. And the idea was that Black men didn't enjoy the privilege of being white and male in corporate America. But as Black men, even though they are quote unquote part of a protected, disadvantaged, if you will, underrepresented minority class in corporate America, they often fell, we'll call it later on the priority scale of diversity initiatives that maybe prioritize Black women, the LGBTQ community, military community, veterans community. Black men were in there, but often not, and our guest today will go into greater detail as an expert in the space, not always the first or the forethought of benefits from the whole DEI push. So listen, before I go any further, let me welcome to the show the founder and president of East Coast Executives, one of our great moderators from last year's Black Men Excel event on this issue, a TED Talk speaker, a BE Modern Man of Distinction. That's how I first got to know him. Kenneth Johnson. Again, founder and president of East Coast Executives. Welcome to the show, Kenneth.
Thank you so very much. Excited to be here for Beyond the Hype, Alfred. I'm a big fan and supporter of all that you do in support of not just Black men, but Black professionals consistently. So thank you so very much for having me.
Yeah, I'm really happy to have you back, man. And I have to say have you back because we got to know each other from Black Men Excel when it was a live event. You were gracious enough to serve as a moderator for a very important discussion around these issues at last year's Black Men Excel. You guys should know that registration is open for this year's Black Men Excel. It's going to be on November 17th and 18th, also virtual. So you want to go check out and get registered now. But I just really, you and I have had conversations both online and offline, if you will, around this whole issue where Black men fall. But before we jump into the meat of that conversation, I want to know about the latest things that you're doing right now, because you're active in this space. This is not just a conversation topic for you. You are active with East Coast Executives in this space, so where the opportunities are. You recruit for corporations. You're looking for talent. People need to understand you work for the corporations. You're not a job placement firm. But talk about what East Coast Executives is doing. And talk about the latest new thing. I see Black Box logo behind you. Let's talk about the latest new thing that you're doing in this space.
Yeah, so we to your point, we try to stay active in the space. Me personally, that means building relationships with, people like BE or organizations like BE that are committed to the cause as well. And also, I have several relationships at different levels with the Urban League and their affiliates. So I think we've shared a National Urban League panel as well before. Now that I think about it, yeah. So
we labor in the same vineyards. Pretty much whatever the Urban League asks me to do, I just do it.
Yeah, I think I saw you check in over a couple of weeks ago at the national conference as well again. So I'm sure we appreciate your support in that fashion. So I host a show for the National Urban League called the Urban League Jobs Network Digital Career Success Series. Great show. It's based on professional development, kind of geared towards their Urban League young professionals, but we get people probably from several demographics to jump in and age demographics to kind of jump in and participate in the show. So I really enjoy that work. We do it every other weekend pretty much, but it's the Urban League Jobs Network Digital Career Success Series. I'm also a consultant for the New York Urban League and the Urban League of Philadelphia as well. That's like family. So I try to work hand in hand with the initiatives. Really excited about an initiative that the New York Urban League just rolled out. We rolled out a diversity and inclusion lab. So we've basically partnered with 9 companies right now to just promote opportunities to Black professionals here in the New York tri-state area. So I'm excited about that. That's nyulconnect.org if anybody's interested in learning a little more about that. But the thing that has been taking up most of my time and I'm really proud about right now is Black Box. We brand it as a career consciousness portal for Black men. It's an app available in the Apple and Google Play stores as we speak. So we're rolling that out and we're building upon that and just trying to be more strategic in the way that we support the people that support us.
You know, Kenneth, I mean, one of the reasons I admire you is that you could make a perfectly good living just running your business. In other words, East Coast Executives serves corporations that are looking for talent.
Yes.
That's who you work for. And you could do that and not do the work you do with the Urban League, not create an app to help Black men be more career conscious, not do the things that you've done, even as you've engaged in things, for Black enterprise. Part of it is, building relationships so you can be effective in your work. But I've always been impressed that you try to go beyond that to really create an environment of opportunity for Black people and Black men in particular. What is the value system that you operate by for East Coast Executives and yourself as a professional, as a Black male?
Yeah, that's a great question. So East Coast Executives, companies come to us when they're looking to add diverse talent to their recruitment pipelines, right? That's the work we do. And I believe we're the best in the world at it. We have some great clients, but we have a great team that really locks in and builds relationships with some of the top talent across industries. But that's the work, and that's kind of what keeps the lights on over here. But some of the other stuff is just rooted in the fact that I wake up each morning and, once I go through my morning routine, I ask myself, listen, try to support as many people as possible today. And that kind of drives everything else, right? I could sit back, that was one of the things working with East Coast Executives. So we work mid to senior level opportunities. And we're successful. So, we touch a lot of people through panels and things of that nature. And then people come back and say, hey, Ken, can you help me? Can you work with me? And I really can't because it doesn't fit into the work we do at East Coast Executives.
Right.
Individually, right? However, I can build some platforms and relationships where I sit and where I'm at that can support the career aspirations of anyone that's out here, entry level to, senior level. And that's what that's all about. Just finding a way to be relevant in our communities, but also to find a way to support people that are really serious about, kind of being intentional in their career pursuits.
And hence to our audience, one of the major reasons why you were nominated and selected as a BE Modern Man, because you do exemplify the idea of having an impact beyond, just what you would do in your day-to-day life, which day-to-day work. And that was recognized. And so, once again, we appreciate.
Let me be transparent in that. I'm going to share with you. Right. And I don't know if I've had a chance to have this conversation with you, which is strange. Okay. But that designation as a BE Modern Man was the springboard to some bigger thinking for me, right? That just allowed me to say, this isn't a job, but this is an assignment. Like I'm here to do this work. And the BE Modern Man designation honestly made me start thinking about it at scale. What can I do to support more people? So I want to credit BE, Black Enterprise, for allowing me to step up to the plate and swing for the fences with some of this work we're doing.
Wow. Well, you're right. We never had that conversation. So it's good to know. I know my colleagues, Team BE, we're in the business of having an impact. As our late founder, Earl Graves Sr. used to tell us, we're in the business of other people's business. So when you hear stories like that, we know we're doing our jobs.
Man, love it. But that's a true story right there.
So let's jump into it. Now, let me say this also. A lot of what you do, both what you do because you're doing it to serve your clients and what you do beyond that, we just talked about, you were doing before the murder of George Floyd. I mean, your work with the Urban League, all the things we've talked about. This is not like you woke up after last year and said, "Oh, let me do this stuff." And you've been engaged because of the space that your company is in with corporations who are seeking diverse candidates. So obviously, you're engaged with their efforts to quote unquote be more diverse companies. What, if anything, is different now with the emphasis on diversity, equity, and inclusions, and both existing companies who are already in this space and new companies saying they got to step up their game in this space to finally, in their words, address systemic racism, address economic inequities, et cetera, et cetera. Is there a big difference? Is it a matter of degree? Is it a matter of intensity? Or are you noticing a difference both in terms the clients you've already had and new clients stepping up saying we need help in this space?
Yeah, I'm noticing a difference. Here's the thing. So I started my firm in 2001, September 3rd, 2001, 8 days before the attacks on 9/11. Wow. And I know you mentioned the TED Talk, and I talk about this in my TED Talk, my TEDx talk, the face of workplace diversity. I'm also the organizer of TEDx Harlem. So that's a platform that I really value and appreciate. But when I started my business, we were speaking to companies about diversity and workplace diversity specifically. And for us, that was just a Black and brown conversation. Look, we want to support you guys in getting more diverse talent into the workplace, or at least into the interview pipelines. And that was the goal and that was the mission. But it was a bunch of one-offs. And sometimes we were speaking to people that, even if some will say they had no idea, but they wouldn't acknowledge that they were falling short in those areas. So the difference that I see today is that there's a tad bit more transparency in companies saying, okay, we're falling short. We know that. Can you help us? Can you support us? Before, they looked at it like they were doing us a favor. Now they look at us as a strategic business partner. And I think that's the shift that we needed. Not only to take advantage of some of the windows that have opened since the civil unrest that took place, a year and a half ago or whatever that was, but also to keep the window open longer for some other people that maybe aren't in talent acquisition, but maybe they're doing some diversity, equity, and inclusion trainings and things of that nature. Once we're in, we can kind of lift that up a little and bring some other people in with us, because we can start talking about more than just talent acquisition. We can talk about a full circle 360 plan to advance workplace diversity at that organization.
Excellent, excellent. So let's get right into the meat of this conversation. Again, the idea that Black men in general, and we'll say in corporate America, are neither protected, as you might be expected of white males as a protected class. No, let me back that up. Privileged, neither privileged. They don't enjoy quote unquote white privilege or white male privilege, even though as men, it could be argued that there's a gender benefit in their favor. But they also don't necessarily enjoy the protections that might be accorded other underrepresented groups. And this is not about, I don't think there's any corporate policy that says this. So a lot of this is whether it's perception, it's maybe our perception. And that's why I really want you to reality check it based on what you actually see. But what I see, and this can be a very uncomfortable conversation sometimes, is when you see major moves in terms of adding representation. And I'll look at who's been being named now to boards, corporate boards. Black women. Yeah. When you look at the growth of entrepreneurship in America, Black women are the fastest growing group. Minority women in general, maybe women in general. Now, some of that is because women are more likely to hit a glass ceiling sooner and choose entrepreneurship as an alternative. So this is not all because they're necessarily being treated better in corporate America. But we see it even when we look at graduating classes in colleges, where, I don't know how it is now, but a few years ago, Howard University's graduating class was 70% Black women and 30% male. And it was almost like a Spelman more than it was. So I'm pointing out all these little data points to talk about how often when you see diversity, and of course, while corporations are loath to admit it, when they advance a minority woman, they get credit for the minority part and the woman part. Mm-hmm. But again, I don't think any of this is intentional. I don't think there's a corporation saying, let's ignore Black men. What are you seeing? Let me, before I lean into whether the hypothesis is true, what are you seeing in terms of where Black men are, not only in terms of their presence and representation in corporate America, but their capacity for advancing to, to space that you're in, mid-level and senior level positions?
So, the data bears out that, well, here's the interesting point, right? So the data bears out that white women have been the biggest beneficiaries to diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives, right?
Right. So even currently with this latest era. That's to come, right? We'll see how that plays out. Okay. But I do think that in this latest era, if you just look at what I'm seeing, and this is, I have no data to prove this. This is just an assessment of me living and breathing in the space. Black women are their impact and their ability to maneuver is being shown, right? They're really taking the reins and using some of this to their advantage, which they should, right? So this is no slight to Black women. But as far as, it's interesting for us, for me, as a Black man and kind of running a recruiting firm, and as I kind of recruit through on a variety of different type of roles, like if you just go to our website and look at the opportunities that we're working, it's kind of across the board. We support companies that are committed to diversity, right? So we might have a software developer, and we might have a quality engineer, or I don't know, a district manager at a retail firm. So we're kind of across the board. And the candidates that I see tend to be Black women that are responding to, our inquiries, or responding to the things that we put out here regarding the work that we're doing. And that's on both sides of that, Alfred. So not only are they the candidates, but they're also the people that are reaching out saying, hey, Ken, I want to bring you over here to help us identify diversity at our organization. And I'm grateful for them, right? I'm grateful for them. But I do know that something's going on where Black men have, probably been the initiators of this diversity push 20, 30 years ago. And I'm not sure they're seen as even an important cog to it today. And that's concerning to me. It's important to recognize that we've had this conversation both one-on-one, but also at our Black Enterprise events. Like, we know Black Enterprise, our strongest, most popular event is Women of Power. So this is not about, we need Black women to pull back. We need Black women to push forward.
Sure.
Because again, a lot of times you get the call for your firm. It's a Black woman that's saying, come on, we need this help, and we know you can do it. So in fact, Black Men Excel as an event was inspired by Women of Power. And when we first announced at Women of Power, because Women of Power was the first time we announced we were even doing the event, you wouldn't have been there, you wouldn't have known this. We could barely get the words out of our mouths, and this sisters gave us a standing ovation.
I love it.
For this idea that what they were enjoying and had been enjoying at that point for close to 15 years with the Women of Power Summit, that we knew, we as Black men, and they knew that we as Black men needed a professional leadership excellence, something that celebrated the leadership of Black men, but also was invested in showcasing that. So again, it's important to lay out for this audience that this is not a conversation that's saying somehow sisters need to roll back or they're not supportive, because there are the biggest cheerleaders for Black Men Excel and Black men in general have been sisters. That said, you are seeing this observation that somehow, in terms of the ecosystem of DEI in corporate America, and then there are a lot of outside factors that feed into that. We talked about college graduation rates, et cetera. It raises concern about Black men in corporate America, in the job market, et cetera.
Yeah, definitely. And, if you're just looking, so you can look across the board at just DEI, but if you're looking specifically at that particular function within an organization, for a while, and this isn't even a segmentation on racial lines, but this is just a gender conversation, because a lot of men weren't running into HR and/or DEI work because they believed it to not be financially as advantageous as other opportunities within the organization, right? So I think some of that was at play, but then now that there's a sound commitment and almost a bottom line initiative to diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives, and people in those roles are doing pretty well financially, because the organizations are seeing the importance of not only workplace diversity but social responsibility. Now we see that maybe more men are paying attention to what's happening over there on the other side and saying, you know what, I think I can have some impact here. So I hopefully we'll start to see some gains in that area. Going back to the neither privileged nor protected conversation at Excel, what was last year, Corey Anthony and Bill Hawthorne are prime examples of that, right? Both of them are sitting in senior level HR roles, but still doing some of the lifting on the DEI side. So I think exposure is key to anything. And I think as you see more Black men operating in those roles, maybe it'll be something that allows others to at least take a look at and say, that might be an avenue that I want to take. But then we have to be present and available for sponsorship and mentorship to support individuals in going in that direction as well.
So let's talk about, you raised the 2 points that there's two sides to the equation. One, I think, I want your take on where corporations may need to be more intentional about diversity efforts that are, in other words, if you just say Black, diversity pursuing Black, and you already know there are more men or females than men in the pipeline, you're in effect going to end up producing more female beneficiaries of the effort. So I'm thinking of programs like JP Morgan Chase's program, where they intentionally, and remember they did a session at Black Men Excel a couple of years ago, focusing on getting more Black men into the pipeline, going to HBCUs, again, not to the exclusion of their efforts to do diversity for Black women and other underrepresented groups, but they came to the conclusion that if we're going to address this particular problem, there has to be a little bit more intentionality about recruiting, getting interns, grooming Black men for corporate leadership. It's my observation that there are lots of programs that are kind of targeting Black people in general, and there are a lot of great programs targeting Black women and girls. That there are not as many programs targeting Black boys and men, even with programs like former President Obama's My Brother's Keeper initiative. I mean, it's not that they're non-existent. What is your perception of the balance between targeting Black girls and women, targeting Black people in general, which because of the ecosystem kind of turns out to be targeting Black girls and women, and specifically targeting Black men?
Yeah, just you speaking about that kind of got the wheels turning in my head, right? Because, I'm very familiar with, like, say, Black Girls Code, but I don't know if there's a Black Boys Code. I'm not sure. And there could be, right? But I'm not sure.
Yeah, but the prominent one, I'm going to call it to your attention only because he's a BE modern man.
Okay.
He's going to actually be speaking on a session at this year's Black Men Excel, and I've been working with him very closely in the past year. But Gerald Moore, who has Mission Fulfilled 2030, Gerald is a cybersecurity engineer.
Nice.
Who literally last year or maybe a year and a half ago finally gave up his regular job to focus just on this idea of Mission Fulfilled 2030, which is about getting Black boys into tech careers. But to your point, the space is so wide open that in less than 2 years, he's probably the most visible vocal voice in the space, in terms of getting Black boys into tech. Whereas, Black Girls Code, and I can name 3 or 4 other program is legendary. They've been out there doing it for a while. And of course, I'll be remiss if I didn't mention All-Star Code,
Yes.
which is also, the late Reginald Lewis's daughter, Christina,
Yep.
Started several years ago and is doing great work focusing on boys of color. But the fact that we could name the two.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm familiar with All Star. And that's Reginald on your wall. Am I correct?
Yes, it is. Yes.
Yeah, there we go. Right. So to your point, yeah, that we can name them. So yeah, and even I'm thinking about, and this is another area of it, but even when you start thinking about business grants and things of that nature, it's probably every 2 weeks I'm calling my friends and associates that are women business owners and saying, hey, I just got this information about this grant opportunity for Black women. But I don't know if I've ever made a call to say, hey, I just got this information about grant opportunities for Black men specifically. So yeah, there's some.
It's either generally for Black people,
right,
or it's for Black women.
Yeah, exactly. So, and again, this is no slight to Black women. I see y'all keep doing what you're doing, but yeah, I just think to a certain extent, that's the conversation. Sometimes we're getting lost in this conversation about the importance of diversity, equity, and inclusion. I do want to commend your colleague or your friend, Gerald, I believe that was his name,
yes.
Because I think you had mentioned 2030, and there was a McKinsey study saying that by 2030, with automation and information technology kind of winning the race as far as jobs will be, like Black men will be the most outplaced people in that segment. Yes. Because of the current jobs that we're working in, and two, the lack of opportunities to upskill. So 2030 is a very important date to work towards and kind of changing that narrative. So hopefully I'm going to reach out and connect and grab that information from you, because I think, there might be an avenue where the two of us can make some change.
Or you guys will do some dynamic things together. You don't know how you guys, I call people like you the executioners, because as soon as you say it, you're doing it. You're not just talking.
Yeah, exactly.
So you and him have that in common. But even with, I'm huge on mentorship. I got an army of people I've been mentoring for now 30 years, 35 years. And even I, like you said, this is not about something like actual data that I have. Like, it's just the life that we're living and breathing and seeing. And it seemed like when I first got, serious and started, it was never something formal, but, by the time I was like 4 or 5 years out of college, I was pretty aggressive about mentoring. And I would say that it was probably 60% men and 40% women. Now, maybe it's 80% of my new mentees are women. Whether they're entrepreneurs, whether they're professionals, whether they're more likely to ask me for mentorship, or it's not even about asking, because I don't necessarily, I don't get my mentors by them asking me. It's more that somebody captures my attention. Okay. We establish a relationship, and then I start mentoring them, and at some point we acknowledge that I'm mentoring them.
Gotcha.
And I've had some amazing young men who are now really grown men who I've mentored. I can think of one brother who's an executive at MasterCard now, another brother who just started his own publication in Trenton, Kenneth Miles, who I've been mentoring since he was in high school.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
But they were from that generation when it was about 50-50s, 40-60. But of my new mentees, where they're entrepreneurs, and I get a lot of my mentees because I judge pitch competitions. I've been judging national pitch competitions, including for the Urban League, for 25 years. And a lot of my mentees are people who either win or were finalists in those competitions that continue to get advice from me. And I even look at those programs. And if there's 10 companies pitching, 8 of them are women. I just did a pitch competition for American Heart Association, literally a couple of weeks ago, last week maybe. All 8 finalists were women.
Wow.
Wow. And so it's like you said, it's not something that I have any data on. It's just that the lived experience is showing that trend.
It's interesting. So when I came into this business, when I decided I wanted to branch out on my own and do search, or even really when I wanted an opportunity. So initially, the opportunities were presented to me. They came from African-American women, right? So I worked for two sisters out in Philly. They had a staffing firm. They had a temporary staffing firm, right? And we did some direct hire. But when I came over to do direct hire, I was introduced by a gentleman named Robert Cuthbert, an African-American male, introduced me to this gentleman named Bernard Johnson, no relation. But Bernard had a firm in Philly called Urban Recruiters.
So I remember Urban Recruiters.
All right, yeah. So I know what he's been on the BE list, right? Yeah,
yeah. Back in the day, we used to do a listing of all the Black recruiters.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I learned under Bernard. But I say all of this to say, in the same building that we were in, I want to say 215 Broad Street in Philly, South Broad, and it was Bernard's firm. There was a gentleman, I want to say his name was Mallory, but they had an executive search branch, right? Bunch of brothers doing executive search. There was a gentleman named Lamont Owens, gentleman named Johnny Young. These were all people within the ecosystem there doing search work, right? And that was amazing because me as a fledgling recruiter trying to come in and learn it, I got to see that it was real because I saw them every day. And they were, other than Bernard, I worked with him, so I'll definitely consider him to be a mentor in that way. But even the other guys, even though they weren't straight mentors, they always put their arm around me and say, hey, listen, this is how you might want to handle this. Get another candidate because I think this is going to drop off. Like they will always share advice, right? Mm-hmm. And that was amazing. And now when I look at the space, I don't talk to anybody. So there's nobody really that I bounce things off of because I don't know a lot of other Black males that have their own search firm, right? Mm-hmm. And that are really like, there's some people that I know that I'm familiar with that are doing it as a side hustle, right?
Right.
But it's just interesting. Like I started out with all of these people to look up to and to get information from. And now I look around and I don't see a lot of people here that I can kind of connect in with and do some work. I know some brothers recently came in and I need to probably reach out and connect and introduce myself. I consider myself an elder statesman in the space now after 20 years. So it's probably up to me to make that happen. So, man, I'm talking to you and I keep adding more things that I need to do. I don't know if this conversation.
Hey, you know how it is, man. It's like the mission keeps growing. Mission keeps real for Black people, for Black men in particular.
For sure.
But you hit on a good point to pivot on, because as you know, I mean, a lot of the work that you do on your own, what Black Men Excel really is about, it's about celebrating our contributions, celebrating, as our CEO, Butch Graves, said when we first launched the event, it's about celebrating the best of who we are. It's not about lamenting what we're not, but celebrating the best of what we are, because to your point, in terms of your experience when you first got into the industry, a big part of your success was being able to see people succeed in your space, and to either be mentored by them, or even if they weren't your mentor, they were at least your role models. They were. So I said, whether it's mentorship or role models. And a big part of why we created BE Modern Men was like, we need to raise up examples like you, who are just, I don't even say just, but brothers who are doing their thing every day, but aren't rappers, basketball players, actors, the usual suspects, so that other young men and boys can see you and say, I can be that, or, and so it goes back to, if you can see it, you can be it. And I'm leading this to this idea of what do we do about it? If we're acknowledging that Black men are neither protected or privileged or protected, it's not enough to say, okay, yeah, this is what we're seeing around us. A big part of BE Modern Man and Black Men Excel is to say, let's elevate the best of us so that others will see us. So what are your thoughts about the pipeline? I guess that's what I'm saying. What are your thoughts about what we can do? Gerald Moore's Mission 2030, for Mission Fulfill 2030, is about targeting kids, really. He's trying to catch kids in junior high school to get them into the pipeline so that they can get on the track. for careers in tech. What are the things that you see that are happening that encourage you, and what are some of the things that you think we need to do more of to get more Black males in position to be more represented, better able to succeed and advance, and to really be taking as a priority when you talk about DEI?
Sure. I think, just even the first step, I do believe that the initiative that you guys have at BE, the Modern Man Initiative, I can't speak highly enough about that experience. And when we got together, I don't know, we were in Lower Manhattan for an event at a hotel, and you brought us all together. And I still speak to some of them brothers. I still talk to Stephen Hart and Ivan and people like that. And I met them that day, but all on the strength of us being BE Modern Men, right? So I think that allows people so you can pipeline through, because now these people exist. And I've been on Stephen's show, and I'm sure I'm going to have him. Black Box, we just launched a podcast. I'll have him on that. Would like to have you as well. We'll talk about that one day. But I think that so those type of initiatives. I spoke yesterday with Maurice Jones of 110. So 110 is an initiative to get 1 million Black people into sustainable careers in the next 10 years. So he has some heavy lifting to do, but he has some really good allies, and Kenneth Frazier, Kenneth Chenault. I can't remember the lady's name from, I think it's IBM, but he got some sharp people that are willing to take this ride with him, or have selected him to lead and be the driver on it. But I just reached out and had a conversation with him yesterday, because I think that we can be a solution provider as far as supporting the pipeline, and he understands kind of the value add that we bring at East Coast Executives. But I was sharing with them, when Black Box gets to where we need it to be, I think, that's the goal in Black Box. We want to help pipeline talent into opportunities and future opportunities, the workforce of the future, those type of opportunities. And sometimes those aren't degree jobs, right? You have to just acknowledge where tech's taking things, where it might be a matter of getting a Google certificate, but taking that over to a tech career, right?
You're making such an important point that I want to drill down a little bit on. Gerald's whole point is that there are great careers that you could just build with certification, make really good money.
Really good.
So it's not that to the degree that there are people in general, and Black kids in particular, that may never go to college. It's not necessary if they can get the right certifications, and they can literally slingshot into really great paying careers.
And look, it's hard for me to have this conversation, because I have a son that's a senior in high school here in New York City, who I keep pushing him towards, college and school. That's the direction I know. Right. And so it's hard for me when I catch myself saying, like, it's really not necessary for everyone right now. You can go 6-8 months through a Google or Coursera or Odyssey certificate program. And to your point, I've seen people come out making really good money after those opportunities. And now with the Google consortium, so my firm, East Coast Executives, we're part of the Google Employer Consortium. So once people complete their certificate programs, if they're in our area or in our wheelhouse, Google will send that information to us and support us in getting them hired.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's like, not only are they educating and providing the certifications, they're also supporting you in the outplacement, right, into their employment partners. So there's some things in place that I think will allow people, if people are serious and if they have the information, it will allow them to pretty much jumpstart their career in 8 months to a year, which is unheard of. We come from a time where 4 years was the minimum. And then they said, no, what? Then you got to go to grad school too, right, or law school, right? But now people are turning it out in 8 months to a year and walking into great careers.
As we get toward the tail end of our conversation, I want to address another uncomfortable topic around this idea. And that is the degree to which it may be the case that we have to do a better job of coaching up our young black men, our young black males. And I'm talking maybe starting as early as 12 or 13. And here's what I mean. And I've had this experience at least for 15 years. I'll use an example. I'll get invited to speak. I do speeches all across the country, and often they're on college campuses. And I'll get invited to speak before a group of young people. And this is whether it's all black or whether it's a mainstream campus. It doesn't matter. Let's say it's a mainstream campus where there's black kids and there's white kids and other kids. Invariably, Kenneth, the most enthusiastic, the ones that ask the questions, the ones that are sitting in the front row, the ones that want to get your card afterwards, the ones that want to follow you on social media, and are the women. And I'm not saying just the black women, it's the girls.
Yeah.
You have men and boys who I believe, I'm going to say this, and I desperately tried to raise my son in such a way that he didn't fall back into this acculturation. And now he's 30 years old and a father himself. I think I could say that me and his mother succeeded. But the boys they're sitting in the back row. They're there, but they're almost like we're there because we have to be here, because it's not cool to actually look like you care. It's not, and this is not just the black boys, Right. It's just the male thing. It's, I don't want to look like I care too much, and I don't want to look like I'm that involved, and I don't want to look like that. And they could actually really want the opportunity,
right? But
there's almost an acculturation among a couple of generations of men or males that you shouldn't actually put yourself out there, And the challenge, and now I'm circling back to young black men, is that young white men can afford that.
Yeah.
The system is set up to receive them whether they act like they want it or not. Young black males can't afford it. And if I speak at a HBCU, I mean, again, all the girls are like, oh, they're into it. They've dressed for it, and and the guys are, there's always some outliers that really are. So I spend a lot of time now talking, and I think people like, Sean Dove, who does such great work with
Sean from home.
Yeah. That there is more to this than just opening doors of opportunity for black males and black men, which we've been talking about so far. It's also, I think, that we have to, and this is my opinion, deliberately coach up a couple of generations, getting them comfortable in different environments, coaching them up about the importance of enthusiasm, coaching up about the importance of they're just looking like you care, because the squeaky wheel gets the grease. Girls get more internships because they apply for more internships.
Right.
Girls get the job because if they interview 10 people and 5 of the people are enthusiastic and 5 are not, guess who you're going to lean toward? So just give me your own thoughts and opinions. I know this is not in the wheelhouse of your East Coast executives when you're looking at C-suite and senior level people. But when you talk about what we have to do to really feed the pipeline so that by the time they get to college or by the time they get to the job market, they are really attractive candidates for you in corporations. What are your thoughts around that?
Yeah. So let's say, I'll start it out with saying we need to get better. But here's the piece, right? And I know, as it relates to East Coast executives, as you had mentioned, might not necessarily be the wheelhouse, but I have a son and I have nephews and I have little cousins. So I have people that I'm responsible for. And as I mentioned, I'm the organizer of TEDx Harlem. I'm trying to get more younger people involved because I want them to know about the thought leaders that are walking around their neighborhood that are brilliant. So it's a big piece of that. I kind of play it back to the way, and I enjoy sports. I enjoy sports a lot. And I remember when you were saying, wow, these people, they're starting to recruit 10th graders and 11th graders now. They're offering them college scholarships. And now it's 9th graders, right? So the sports world understands that you need to tap into talent and get connected at a really young age. How about regular everyday careers? We need to tap in and start connecting with these people at a much younger age. Before, I remember when I was in college, I started getting serious about internship opportunities and things of that nature, junior, senior year at best. Man, I meet kids, because I go around and do the college kind of tours as well. And even when I'm in high schools here in New York City, I have kids come up to me and talk about internship opportunities. And I'm like, wow, you're so much further ahead than I was. Like, and so I have to be, and that's the piece with Black Box. I've had people that are senior level executive types, Black men, Black women, but we're talking about Black men in this conversation. Say, how would Black Box be of benefit to me? And I'm like, listen, even at the bare minimum, you'll be of benefit to the people in Black Box. I need you in because I'll find a platform that'll allow me to introduce some of the younger people that are on the platform to you. And then you'll be able to serve one as an example, but even if you want to be more intentional and more strategic as a mentor. And that's what we need to do. So I really had to reevaluate the way I was looking at the app myself, because I think that's a value add, right? We're going to have senior level executives in that can reach back and support people that are kind of trying to navigate their industry of expertise, right? And things of that nature. So I really do believe that as much as I dislike the way people in college sports and even professional sports are handling some of this, I do think they got it right with, you can tap into people at a younger age and add extreme value just by being there and supporting them and serving as a mentor, at least a platform where they can grow. So yeah, we need to kind of reach back a little further. It's not just helping out the college kids. It's helping out the high school kids. It's helping out the kids that are in middle school. Like, I see it every day. They need help. And I think with technology, even to this day, if I have a tech challenge, I go to my son. I go to him and say, hey, tell me what's going on here. And he usually figures it out. So,
the other thing I think is this whole idea of exposure. And again, if you're a talented, middle school kid, you're going to get exposed to it's not just about the recruitment, it's about the exposure. It's about knowing that there's a camp that I can go to. It's about knowing that there's I'm just thinking about my own kids who enjoy the advantages, particularly because I work for Black Enterprise. But this is what I mean in terms of exposure. When my second oldest daughter, when she was about, let's say she was 13, expressed the interest in fashion design, I know so many people in that space. I was like, oh, listen, I know the women that designed the FUBU and what you call his line?
The baby fat.
Baby fat, right. Yeah. Like, I knew there's a entrepreneurial group of 4 young women who I met because I judged them in the business plan competition, ended up becoming mentors to 2 of them. And I just picked up the phone and said, listen, can my daughter hang around with you for the weekend to see what that looks like? Now my daughter ultimately didn't decide to go down that path, but at 12 or 13, she got an exposure to something. And I've been into fashion. I love fashion all my life and style, but I didn't get my first real exposure to fashion until I was the only Black male in a fashion design course at the all women's college at Rutgers Douglas College.
Wow.
And I was 20 by then.
Yeah, exactly.
And in a real way, I mean, if I decided to go that direction, I was like 10 years behind and so this idea, it's not just enough to coach them up to say, this is how you act, this is what you should do, but this idea of exposing boys and young men to the options so that they're even thinking about it by the time it's time to pursue those careers.
You had said something earlier about, the whole athletes are rapper thing, right? And, this is part of the reason that we started Black Box as well. I've just working with the urban leagues, I've been to quite a few schools, high schools and things of that nature. And I used to, come in like, all right, just a show of hands. Does anyone know what it is that they want to do when, as a career? And overwhelmingly, it was athletes or rappers. And, some of the kids, I'm like, are you got stuff on YouTube now, or like, are you on the basketball team here at the school? No.
Oh yeah, they play pickup basketball, in the hood, They're not even on, even if they were talented, like you're not even on the track.
Yeah. So I'm like, so exposure, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
like that's how lost, and I don't want to say lost because that's such a strong term, but really that's what it is. Like if you're sitting here telling me that that's what you want to do, but you're not even on the track, right? And not saying that that's the way it has to be, but that's usually the way it works. Right. So I think, exposure is such a big thing. And how do we as Black men get front and center enough to expose younger Black men to different career paths and opportunities? We live in a world where literally somebody can get on LinkedIn and connect with Alfred Edmond. I'm from the days of reading, magazines and things of that nature and seeing people there. And that was almost mythical, right? It's like, I don't know how I would get in touch with this person, but literally now.
Like, how are you going to talk to Reginald Lewis?
Right.
But even if you read about him.
Yeah, exactly. And now you can touch him. You could go to his Twitter, right? Like if it was like in today's world, you literally can connect with people or at least give it a shot.
Or at least follow them. They can be role models, even if they can't be mentors. Your role models don't have to be physically in front of you anymore.
For sure. So with that being the world that we live in, I mean, I think let's adapt. Let's be responsible enough as Black men to share those experiences and those successes and those failures even with those that are trying to come behind us and understanding and navigating the career path that's right for them. We have people out here that are capable. We have resources. We just need to be strategic and have a desire to support and help and pull some other people along. And hopefully, platforms like the one you have right here with Beyond the Hype. And I know the BM Excel platform is doing it, but hopefully we'll be able to follow that lead at Black Box and at East Coast Executives and support some younger people as well in getting positioned to be successful.
So to conclude, to the degree that Black men are neither privileged nor protected, and again, that could be a perception, depending on where you sit. But to the degree that it is true, it sounds like the answers that we're covering is, on the one hand, we do need to sensitize corporate Americas and other institutions to be intentional about reaching out to developing young Black boys and men for opportunities. That it does mean changing the system and the environment and the climate to make it more welcoming, or an environment where Black men can thrive and advance. But the flip side is we have to do more to prepare the pipeline through exposure, through mentorship, through role modeling, through coaching, maybe at the younger ages, through programs like Mission Fulfilled 2030 and other programs that may exist and we don't know about, or maybe we need to create new ones. And let me say, we don't want to dismiss the important work that's done by organizations such as the 100 Black Men or a lot of the Black fraternities. So it's not that work is not being done, but it might need to be more of an emphasis and a focus going forward in order to make sure that Black boys and men also benefit from this push toward diversity, equity, and inclusion.
For sure. And, some of that will be, finding ways to get in the space where we're in decision-making roles at some of these corporations and we can make decisions that are geared towards supporting, or I don't want to say projects, but supporting the people that we know need assistance as well. So it works on both sides, but a big piece of it will be us continuing to progress in our careers and taking advantage of some of these opportunities that are presented, and then being front facing in those roles and helping other people kind of come along. So that's an age old adage. That's not new. That process isn't new. But I think sometimes the pressure of being successful in corporate America lends to us forgetting that that's a part of the journey as well.
And listen, and just as a final word, I want to re-emphasize, thank you, sisters, for being allies in the cause. Because again, they're the champions of Black boys and men than Black women, particularly Black women leaders in corporate America, who are definitely, again, cheerleading us, and they want us to be successful as well.
And I'm going to share something that I prepared for this conversation. Our last 15 placements were Black women at East Coast Executives.
Wow.
The last 15.
Wow. That's a streak. That's a streak to ponder, man.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, I feel great about it, but I also have some concern.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
So
feel you. I feel you. But listen, man, you've been extremely generous with your time. I knew this was going to be a great conversation. Thank you. Just thank you. Thank you for doing what you do. Thank you for being who you are. Thank you for being a BE modern man who is a symbol of excellence in leadership, who represent what we're trying to do with Black Men Excel. And you know, I just, you know, I appreciate you on a personal level. So thanks, Ken, for being on the show.
man, thank you for having me. The feelings are mutual. I'm a big fan of you and the work you guys are doing at BE, and just across so many different platforms. You're necessary, and we need you out here. So thank you so very much. If anybody's looking to stay connected to the work that we're doing here, please visit the East Coast Executives website at eastcoastexecutives.com. Again, we got blackbox.tech, so that's a website. And if you're interested in learning more about TEDx Harlem, just Google it through. We're here. So thank you so very much.
And download that Black Box app.
Yes,
and encourage others to do so as well.
Indeed. Thank you very much.
It's my pleasure. This is Alfred Edmond Jr., Senior VP, Executive Editor at Large at Black Enterprise, the #1 Black media brand with more than 8 million unique monthly visitors. Listen, this is the latest edition of Beyond the Hype, a great edition of Beyond the Hype. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.